In the heart of ABA, under the oppressive heat and the loud cries of hawkers chasing Kiki Nepep, Chuka Onuha worked tirelessly. He was a hard-working, ambitious man, the kind who bore the weight of his family like Atlas, yet wore a smile that made his burden invisible. For years, Chuka had one dream, to Joppa, to escape Nigeria's broken system and start afresh in the UK. He had seen the way the abroad boys strutted during Christmas, throwing pounds around like confetti at a wedding. He wanted that life. Not just for himself, but for his wife, Edeora, and their 2 children, Somto and Amarachi. Edeora was his queen. He met her during his university days in Unizik, sharp tongue, dazzling eyes, and the kind of smile that could melt the rage of a Lagos traffic jam. She had stood by him when he had nothing. So naturally, when the UK student visa came through, Chuka didn't even consider going alone. "Nene, we go together," he told her one night while they watched the kids sleep. "No so dem dey separate families. I no go gree. If I dey suffer, make we suffer together. If I make make we enjoy together." She cried tears of joy. That night, they made love with the hunger of 2 people who believed the world was finally tilting in their favor. By February 2022, the UK welcomed them under the health and care worker visa route. Chuka found work as a support worker in Birmingham. Edeora joined him 2 months later as his dependent. It was all going according to plan, or so he thought. Birmingham was cold, both in weather and in heart. Within weeks of settling in, Edeora changed. It started subtly. The way she began rolling her eyes when Chuka corrected the children. The cold silence that followed every disagreement. The sudden obsession with TikTok feminism pages and late-night FaceTimes with just a friend from college. Chuka tried to rationalize it. She dey stressed. New country things. Ego balance. But it didn't. In fact, it spiraled. Edeora refused to work initially, claiming the NHS jobs were too demanding. But her new nails and fast-fashion Zara outfits painted a different story. Soon, she started leaving the house for long hours. No explanation. No accountability. Then the real horror began. It was a chilly November evening when Chuka returned from a 14-hour shift and found the locks changed. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Maybe the key was stuck. He called Edeora. She didn't answer. A neighbor passing by whispered, "You the one married to the tall Niger woman." "Bruv. I think she's moved you out." Heart racing, Chuka walked around to the back door, only to find his clothes, his PS4, his birth certificate, all in a black trash bag, dumped near the bins. Edeora finally called back. "You need to stop calling me. I filed a police report for domestic harassment." "What?" he gasped. "Me will never raise hand on you even when you throw phone at me. I've spoken to a solicitor. I'm no longer your dependent. I have my own visa route now. I don't need you anymore, Chuka." The line went dead. Behind closed borders. For months, Chuka slept in his car. His care job barely paid enough to keep up with council flat rent and feeding. The same woman he had left everything for had not only kicked him out, she had poisoned the minds of their children too. Somto stopped calling him daddy. Amarachi screamed whenever he showed up at school pickup, as though he were the villain in their bedtime stories. Edeora filed for a court-order child arrangement order and lied that Chuka had been emotionally abusive. He cried every night in his battered Peugeot 206, whispering prayers into the cold leather seat. "How did I lose everything? My wife. My kids. My name." Friends back home couldn't believe it. If it lie," they said. Edeora way they wear rapper go church. She no fit do that kind thing. But in the UK, behind closed doors and GP reports, Edeora was building a narrative. One where Chuka was the monster. One where she was the survivor. In the winter of his breakdown, Chuka found others, men just like him. There was Ode, whose wife ran off with a Jamaican man and took all their savings. Musa, who was dragged to court for an assault that never happened. And Benji, who landed in jail after his wife claimed he was abusive, only for CCTV to later show she was the one throwing the first punch. They met weekly in a dingy halal cafe on Soho Road, calling themselves the Brotherhood of Broken Men. We know they talk this thing outside, or they said one day. Them go laugh us. Say we no fit control woman. Say we weak. But inside, we dey die, Chuka whispered. And nobody dey see am. It took one mistake for Adora's perfect plan to crack. A nosy neighbor recorded one of her many loud arguments with her new live-in boyfriend, a Ghanaian man she met on Hinge. In the video, she screamed at him, calling him a useless parasite. She admitted loudly to lying on Chuka so that the court go side me. The video found its way to the family court. By the time Chuka walked into the courtroom, head low and shoulders sunken, he had no hope. But when the judge played the video, the courtroom turned ice cold. Adeora's lawyer withdrew. The judge ordered an investigation. Visitation rights were reinstated. Her new visa sponsor revoked due to immigration deception. Justice was beginning to flicker. Chuka got partial custody of his kids. But they had been poisoned for too long. Samto called him the sperm donor. Amarachi asked why he abandoned them. Adeora became a shadow of her former self. Shunned in church, dropped by friends, and facing deportation, she roamed job to job, burning every bridge she crossed. Still, the damage had been done. Chuka battled depression, night terrors, panic attacks whenever he heard police sirens. His heart, once bursting with love, now only beat out of survival. Chuka thought getting justice would fix everything. But he quickly learned that truth doesn't heal wounds, especially when the world has already swallowed the lie. Every visit with his children was a battlefield. Samto sat with folded arms, earphones plugged in, answering every question with a grunt or a shrug. Amarachi clung to her Barbie doll, barely looking at him. He tried to reconnect. He brought them suya, jollof rice, their favorite chin-chin. He took them to a Nigerian restaurant where high life played softly and palm wine was served in little calabashes. Nothing worked. Once, after a tense visit, he overheard Samto whisper to his sister, "He's only pretending now. Wait till he tricks us and locks mommy away." That night, Chuka wept. Not the kind of weeping that made noise. The type that came from the stomach, deep, soundless tremors that made his chest shake violently. He began to understand that even after truth, after justice, after vindication, some losses cannot be reversed. Some memories, especially those planted by a manipulative parent, run deeper than roots. Adeora's decline was swift and cruel. Her Ghanaian boyfriend vanished the day her visa issues hit the system. The house she had seized through lies was reclaimed by the council. She was left homeless, humiliated, and utterly alone. Friends stopped answering her calls. Even the church, where she had once been honored for her resilience and leadership, sent her a polite letter requesting she not return until certain legal matters are resolved. By the time she was taken to the Home Office Immigration Detention Center, Adeora had lost nearly everything, except her pride. She still looked down on Chuka, still muttered, "He deserved it. He's the reason I am where I am." Even in destruction, she couldn't see herself clearly. But the walls of Combrook IRC have a way of forcing reflection. And one cold March evening, staring at the flickering fluorescent bulb above her bunk, Adeora wrote a letter, one she never expected to send. "Dear Chuka, I won't ask for your forgiveness. Not yet. I'm not sure I deserve it. Maybe not ever. I ruined our family. I broke you. I broke our children. And I did it with full awareness. At the time, it felt like I was finally taking control. But in truth, I was drowning in my own ego and fear. You gave me everything, the visa, the opportunity, the future. And I threw it all away because I thought abroad meant freedom from loyalty. I see now that being free doesn't mean hurting others. It doesn't mean betrayal. I hope the children heal. I hope you heal. And if you never speak to me again, I will understand. Edeora. Chuka read the letter 4 times. The paper shook in his hands. He didn't cry. He just stared into space, whispered, "Too little, too late," and folded it quietly, placing it inside his Bible. Chuka could have destroyed Edeora completely. With the new evidence, testimonies from her boyfriend's exes, and proof of immigration fraud, he had enough to keep her behind bars and off UK soil forever. His lawyer said, "We can go all the way. This is your moment, Mr. Onuha." But something held him back. Maybe it was the look in his daughter's eyes, the last time she hugged her mother during a court-supervised visit. Maybe it was the haunting voice of his late mother reminding him, bitterness is a second prison. Don't drink poison and expect someone else to die. He asked the court to show leniency. To deport her, yes. But to allow her visitation rights from afar via video. To let her see her children, under supervision. The judge was stunned. "Why would you show mercy?" she asked. Chuka answered, "Because vengeance will not rebuild my family. But maybe mercy will give them a chance to understand grace." 6 months passed. The house was quiet now. Chuka had moved into a better flat. Somto started talking again, mostly about football and school. Amarachi began drawing pictures of their family, Chuka always in the center. It wasn't perfect. But it was healing. He started volunteering with immigrant men's support groups, sharing his story, mentoring newly arrived husbands and fathers. Abroad no be escape, he often said. No amplifier. If una marriage get crack, it go bust here. If your character bad, it go spread fast here. If you know Sobi communication, trust me, abroad go humble you. He told them how abroad offers opportunity, but not love. How it gives visa, but not values. How it supports freedom, but punishes foolishness. And most importantly, how men needed to enter marriage with emotional intelligence, spiritual grounding, and a strong support system, not just a travel plan. One day, at a Nigerian youth conference in Manchester, Chuka stood before a crowd of students and young professionals. The room was filled with laughter, phone-snapping selfies, and soft Afrobeats playing in the background. But when he stepped up to speak, the room fell silent. "I'm not here to bash women," he said. "I'm here to expose the danger of untested love, unearned loyalty, and unchecked trauma." He told them everything, the betrayal, the lies, the exile in his own house. "But this isn't just about Edeora," he said. "It's about us, the men. We chase visa more than vision. We marry for comfort, not character. We lead without learning. And when abroad shakes our homes, we blame women of nowadays instead of asking, did I know who I married? Did I become the kind of man who inspires respect, not fear?" He ended with one line that echoed through the hall. "Don't take your partner abroad until your relationship has survived the storm. Because abroad will not build your love, it will test it to the breaking point." Edeora arrived in Nigeria with nothing but a small suitcase and a passport that now bore the invisible stamp of disgrace. The arrival hall in Matola Muhammad Airport smelled of jet fuel, sweat, and regret. Her wig was matted, her nails chipped, and her soul tattered. No one came to pick her up. Her elder sister, Nkechi, refused to let her stay. "You disgraced us abroad and now you want to infect my home with your wala. Abeg, stay wherever you've been sleeping." She rented a tiny room in Ojodubaga, surrounded by noisy generators, cracked walls, and mosquitoes that whispered in her ears like guilt. At night, she stared at the ceiling fan that never worked, thinking of her children's faces. Their birthdays passed. No calls. Her video visitations were ignored by Somto. Amarachi once cried at the sight of her on Zoom and ran away. She began to write again, journal entries, prayers, letters never sent. She started attending therapy sessions at a small church group where women with scarred hearts gathered. I once had everything, she confessed one evening. And then I chose to have power instead of partnership. Now I have silence. Chuka was in the kitchen when Amarachi asked, "Daddy, when is mommy coming back?" He froze, the steam from the pot hitting his glasses. "Why?" he asked cautiously. He shrugged. "Because I miss her sometimes. Not always. But sometimes." Somto wasn't as soft. One night, during a homework session, he snapped, "You lied about mommy." Chuka blinked. "What did I lie about?" "You made her look like a villain." "But she told me everything. She said you used to cheat. That you beat her in Nigeria and that's why she had to protect us in the UK." The blood drained from Chuka's face. "That's not true, Somto. You're just mad she stood up to you." He slammed his books shut and ran upstairs. Chuka felt the ground beneath him shift. Even after everything, truth, court wins, moral high ground, he was still losing in the battlefield of memory and manipulation. That night, he cried again. Not out of pain, but out of exhaustion. It was during one of his support group talks that he met her. Zara Okonkwo, a widow, nurse, and single mother of one. She listened more than she spoke. Her eyes carried the same weariness, the same buried storms. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't loud. She was peace. They began talking over cups of hot chocolate after meetings. Nothing romantic. Just two people sharing scar tissue and searching for air. One day, she said, "You still look at every woman like she's going to hurt you." He didn't deny it. And yet, he still walked her to her car. Still remembered her birthday. Still bought her son a mini football for Christmas. Months passed. Then one evening, during a walk by the canal, she asked, "If I love you gently, will you punish me for another woman's sins?" Chuka took a long breath. "I don't know how to love anymore," he replied honestly. "But I know how to protect. How to provide. And I'm willing to learn the rest." She held his hand. "That's a start." Just when things were beginning to breathe again, the letter came. A thick brown envelope from the family court. Edeora was filing for full custody, again. From Nigeria. Attached was a scathing affidavit accusing Chuka of manipulating the children, withholding visitation, and emotionally blackmailing them. Chuka nearly fainted. But how? He asked his lawyer. "Family law doesn't care about geography," the barrister replied. "If she claims emotional connection and digital alienation of the children, she can apply for court orders. You need to fight this." He thought about Sarah. About starting a new life. About peace. And now, war was knocking again. He stared at the ceiling that night and prayed, "God, if this is a test, please don't let it break me." The court required both Somto and Amarachi to give statements through a child psychologist. On the day of the virtual assessment, Chuka paced in his living room like a caged lion. When the report arrived 2 weeks later, his hands shook as he opened the PDF. Somto Onoha. "I was angry at Dad because I thought he made Mom leave. But now I understand that Mom lied a lot. I love her, but I feel safer with Dad. Amarachi Onoha. I miss Mommy sometimes. But Daddy is always here. He makes me feel warm inside. I want to stay with Daddy." Chuka dropped to his knees and sobbed. From a cheap call center in Ojodu, Edeora tried one last time. "Chuka." He was silent. I saw their statements. I don't know what to say anymore." "You don't have to say anything, Edeora." She swallowed. "Just, please don't let them forget me." "They won't," he said. "But they will remember everything, the truth." Not your version. Not mine. Just the truth. Then he added, gently but firmly. Let them heal. Let us all heal. Don't drag them into another courtroom war. For once, she didn't argue. She said thank you. And ended the call. Chuka sat at his desk, fingers trembling, and began to write. It was an open letter, one he wanted to publish in youth magazines, diaspora blogs, and online forums. To every young Nigerian dreaming of abroad. Visa will not fix what you refuse to confront. Abroad is not heaven. It's a mirror, it reflects and magnifies your flaws, your cracks, your wounds. Don't carry bitterness into marriage and expect sweetness. Don't chase partnership if you're not ready for sacrifice. Test your relationship in fire before testing it in a foreign land. And most of all, know that love is not built on passports, it's built on character. I almost lost my soul trying to give someone the world. Now, I rebuild, brick by brick, heart by heart. You can too. Chuka Anya. Zara was the kind of woman who healed by nurturing plants, people, peace. Under her influence, Chuka smiled more. He started gardening in his tiny backyard. Amarachi called it Daddy's Jungle. Samto began asking Zara for advice on school projects. But healing isn't always linear. One day, during an argument over dinner plans, innocent and silly, Chuka raised his voice. Zara flinched. He froze, shocked at himself. I'm sorry, he said immediately. Zara looked at him, eyes soft. I'm not afraid of you, Chuka. I'm afraid of what you're still carrying. Chuka sat down slowly. I want to stop bleeding on people who didn't cut me. She reached for his hand. Then let me help you bandage what Edeora wounded. And just like that, the walls began to fall, slowly, imperfectly, but surely. Edeora stood at the back of a small Lagos church, watching mothers sing praises with bare feet and vibrant wrappers. She looked nothing like the elegant UK babe she used to be, just a woman in plain clothes, clutching a tattered Bible. She had hit bottom. One day after service, a woman named Momangechi approached her. You look like someone who's walked through fire, she said. Edeora nodded. I walked through it. But I was the one who lit the match. Momangechi chuckled. The good news. God can use ashes too. That day, Edeora joined the women's outreach. She started volunteering at a center that helped battered wives, ironic, but fitting. And little by little, she began to taste humility. For the first time in years, she stopped chasing validation and started seeking restoration. 10 years later, Samto was 21, tall, confident, and studying criminology at the University of Birmingham. During a youth panel, he said, My mother broke my father. But he didn't break me. He taught me what resilience looks like, not by fighting her, but by forgiving her. He still had scars. Trust issues. But he was learning to love slowly, carefully. Amarachi, now 18, wrote a blog titled, Daughter of Two Fires. In one viral post, she said, I loved my mother and feared her. I loved my father and watched him fear love. But somehow, they gave me enough pieces to build a whole. She studied psychology. She wanted to help children whose parents fought invisible wars. Both visited Edeora in Nigeria once a year. Not out of obligation, but out of mercy. It came in the form of a knock on the door. Zara was preparing dinner when a man in a dark coat arrived. Are you Mr. Chuka Anya? He asked. Yes, Chuka replied cautiously. The man handed him an envelope. This is from a woman named Ifenanya Okoye. She says she knew you before you got married, and you might have a son. Zara dropped a spoon. Chuka stood frozen. Inside the envelope was a letter and a DNA test result, 99.8% paternity match. A 19-year-old boy named Kamsi, raised in Delta State. If Nene Anya had died recently, and the boy wanted to meet the man she claimed was his father. Chuka sat down, stunned. This can't be real. Zara quietly placed a hand on his shoulder. Maybe it's not a curse. Maybe it's a second chance to get fatherhood right again. Kamsi came to the UK with a visitor's visa, staring wide-eyed at the city lights. He looked like Somto, only darker and sharper around the jaw. Their first meeting was awkward. You abandoned my mother, Kamsi accused. I didn't even know she was pregnant. Well, she knew. And she died telling me you were a good man. I didn't believe her. I still don't. I'm not asking you to believe, Chuka said gently. I'm asking you to let me prove myself. Kamsi folded his arms. Why should I? Chuka answered, because I didn't show up when you were born. But I'm showing up now, if you let me. Chuka looked at the 3 children he now claimed. Somto, wise beyond his years, cautious, but fiercely loyal. Amarachi, soft-spoken but strong, the glue in every room. Kamsi, wounded, sharp, skeptical, but brilliant. He invited them to dinner. They laughed, argued, shared stories. Kamsi began to thaw. At the end of the night, Chuka raised a toast. To pain, because it taught us how to value peace. They clinked glasses. Chuka's story became a documentary, played in Nigerian community centers, churches, even secondary schools. It ended with these words. Don't rush to relocate a relationship you haven't repaired. Don't marry for escape, abroad we reveal, not conceal. Test love before visas, test loyalty before location. And always remember, a passport cannot fix a broken heart. The evening sun filtered through the lace curtains in Chuka's home in Milton Keynes. Zara sat in the garden, sipping tea with Amarachi, who had just returned from her graduation ceremony. Somto was already working in law enforcement, a quiet leader. Kamsi had started a tech company, slowly learning to forgive the man he once called a stranger. Their home was filled with laughter, memories, and a calm joy that could only come from weathering storms. At 55, Chuka didn't look young, but he wore a kind of ageless peace, not because his life was perfect, but because he had made peace with its imperfections. He published a memoir titled, The Fire Didn't Burn Me, It Burnt Me. It became a bestseller among Nigerian men in the diaspora. Men who once kept silent about pain now spoke up. Families began to heal. Some women reached out to say, your book helped me realize what I was becoming before it was too late. In one final interview, a young journalist asked him, Mr. Chuka, if you could give the next generation one sentence of wisdom, what would it be? He smiled. Build love before you build legacy, because love is the only legacy worth building. Back in Lagos, Edeora stood before a small group of women, teaching at the center she once volunteered at. Her face was tighter, her tone harder. Her story had inspired many, but Edeora was now speaking from pain again, not healing. The world is unfair to women, she said. Men move on easily. Women pay forever. She had started resenting Chuka's peace. Her children's praise of him burned her. Amarachi's blog post calling Zora the second mother shattered her. One day, after a speaking session, she went home and stared at an old picture of her and Chuka, younger, innocent, naive. She threw it across the room, the glass shattering like her pride. Bitterness crept in like a slow poison. Not because Chuka had won, but because she refused to let herself lose with grace. She began writing social media rants. Asterisk, they'll always believe the man. Asterisk, he manipulated the kids. I was the real victim. No woman should ever submit, submission is slavery. Her followers grew. But so did her emptiness. She had traded redemption for relevance. Healing for hashtags. And behind the screens, When the lights went off, she cried herself to sleep. Chuka's family gathered on a quiet Sunday for his 56th birthday. Kamsi gave a speech. You weren't there when I was born. But you were there when I became a man. That matters more. Amarachi read a poem. Our father's strength was not in his fist, but in how he chose not to clench them. Not in what he lost, but in what he still gave. And Somto said, I want to raise my children like he raised us. Not perfectly, but with truth. Zara, holding Chuka's hand, whispered, You did it. He smiled. No. We did it. Dear sons and daughters of Nigeria. As you dream of abroad, dream rightly. Don't take dysfunction across borders. Don't wear fake love like perfume, only to find it fades in the cold. Don't enter marriage to escape poverty. Abroad is not a miracle, it is a magnifier. Marry your friend. Heal your wounds. Know your truth. And above all, never use freedom as a license to destroy. Because one day, you look back. And the question won't be, did I make it abroad? It will be, did I make it in life? Let your answer be yes. Kindly subscribe, like, and comment for more interesting stories.